You mentioned owning the 911 at 19 years old.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what you have in your own personal fleet. I mean, this show is about not only culture here, Gordon, but
Okay.
also cars.
Couple car stories. Well, so I'm all over the board when it comes to.
Okay.
I just am. Yeah, like I said, I've been a Porsche guy. I had an Irish Green 911S when I was 19, and I'd actually sold my 510 Datsun. So here at 16, I paid $1,200 for a Datsun 510, a two-door, and turned it into a clone to a car that I'd read about in Motor Trend magazine that Pete Brock had built called the Screaming Yellow Zonker. It was basically a street version of a 2.5 Trans Am 510 challenge car. And so I replicated that car at a really young age and drove it around for a few years and sold that. So I bought it for $1,200. I sold it for $8,000, which was it kind of woke my eyes up to, wow, you can actually, if you do it well, you can do
Yes.
the leapfrogging thing, which I've kind of done my entire life when it comes to cars and bikes. So I sold that car and bought an Irish Green 911S, and that really introduced me to the world of Porsche. And I just, being 6'5", I've always loved those cars. I've never had the seat all the way back. The Germans have something about ergonomics that they've got figured out really, really well. So I've got a 2015 911 that's my daily driver. Manual gearbox, no sunroof, modeled after a car. My last consignment when I was running Christie's was the Steve McQueen Lusso, which was that crazy metallic brown, which you just think would not work on a Ferrari, right? I fell in love with the color though. I really did. So that's the color of my 911, which is a little unusual. Most of them are silver, but that's a daily driver. I never had a fast car in high school. Again, I was limping around on a Honda CL90 and then a Datsun 510. So I was never a guy with a cool car in high school, but I always admired the guys that had the Z28s and the Mustangs and all the rest of it. So I do have a 72 Z28, which Camaro, which is really, it's just a whimsical car. Those things just make you smile, they really do. Silver with white interior, white stripes, completely stock, except I did put Hotchkiss springs on. I lowered a little bit. Those cars sit a little high. That was the look in the 70s, they sat a little high. But I later learned, I didn't know this at the time. I bought the car because I liked it, and I've had it forever, but I just kind of like the looks of it. But that is another thing about that styling, the Gen 2 Camaros. I really like the 69Zs, but to me, $175,000 for a Camaro, that doesn't resonate with me. So it seemed like the Gen 2s were a better value. But when you look at the car, there's a lot of European styling. I think Bill Mitchell, that was kind of his push to his design teams. He was very inspired by Daytonas and a lot of Pininfarina work. And when you look at that car, you can kind of squint and use your imagination, and you can kind of see what's going on in terms of the European influence. But they also only made 2,300 of them. There was a UAW strike in '72, so they didn't make a lot of them, which is kind of fun. But I've also got a '72 Datsun 240Z, which is the car I always wanted. When I was 16, I wanted a Z, but I could only afford a 510. But when you put the Z28 and the 240Z together, there's a tale of two Zs there that is really remarkable because they have very similar lines. And it's interesting. See, clearly the Japanese were inspired by the Pininfarina designs as well. Long hood, sloped rear window, pronounced three-quarter haunch on both. It's really fascinating. So two fun cars that are just kind of a hoot. I've got a little 280 SL. That's actually my wife's car, a little 4-speed 70. She loves that thing. And then a lot of old motorcycles.
Yeah, how many of those do you have, Gordon?
I guess I might be down to about 20 now. I did sell a few last year. So, everything from Vincent Black Shadows to Norton Manx's, Triumphs, everything under the sun. I love riding motorcycles. I really do. I ride every week. I'm a fair weather rider. I don't mind getting caught in bad weather, but I won't set out in it. But I enjoy riding. I always have.